vessel of 10 guns, richly laden from Bristol. After plundering and detaining her 3 days, they allowed her to prosecute her voyage. This vessel, however, informed the governor of what had befallen them, who sent a vessel of 20 guns and 80 men in quest of the pirates. The vessel was commanded by one Rogers, who, on the second day of his cruise, discovered Roberts. Ignorant of any vessel being sent after them, they made toward each other. Roberts gave him a gun, but instead of striking, the other returned a broadside, with 3 huzzas. A severe engagement ensued, and Roberts, being hard put to it, lightened his vessel and ran off. Roberts then sailed for the island of Dominica, where he watered and was supplied by the inhabitants with provisions, for which he gave them goods in return. Here he met with 15 Englishmen left upon the island by a Frenchman, who had made a prize of their vessel, and they, entering into his service, proved a seasonable addition to his strength. Though he did not think this a proper place for cleaning, yet, as it was absolutely necessary that it should be done, he directed his course to the Grenada Islands for this purpose. This, however, had well nigh proved fatal to him, for the governor of Martinique fitted out 2 sloops to go in quest of the pirates. They, however, sailed to the above mentioned place, cleaned with unusual despatch, and just left that place the night before the sloops in pursuit of them arrived. They next sailed for Newfoundland, arriving upon the Banks in June 1720, and entered the harbour of Trepassey, with their black colours flying, drums beating, and trumpets sounding. In that harbour there were no less than 22 ships, which the men abandoned upon the sight of the pirates. It is impossible to describe the injury which they did at this place, by burning or sinking the ships, destroying the plantations, and pillaging the houses. Power in the hands of mean and ignorant men renders them wanton, insolent, and cruel. They are literally like madmen, who cast firebrands, arrows, and death, and say, "Are we not in sport?" Roberts reserved a Bristol galley from his depredations in the harbour, which he fitted and manned for his own service. Upon the Banks he met 10 sail of French ships, and destroyed them all, except one of 26 guns, which he seized and carried off, and called her the Fortune. Then, giving the Bristol galley to the Frenchmen, they sailed in quest of new adventures, and soon took several prizes, and out of them increased the number of their own hands. The Samuel, one of these, was a very rich vessel, having some respectable passengers on board who were roughly used, and threatened with death if they did not deliver up their money and their goods. They stripped the vessel of every article, either necessary for their vessel or themselves, to the amount of 8 or 9,000 pounds. They then deliberated whether to sink or burn the Samuel, but in the meantime they discovered a sail, so they left the empty Samuel and gave the other chase. At midnight they overtook her, and she proved to be the Snow from Bristol, and because she was an Englishman, they used the master in a cruel and barbarous manner. 2 days after, they took the Little York of Virginia, and the Love of Liverpool, both of which they plundered and sent off. In 3 days they captured 3 other vessels, removing the goods out of them, sinking one, and sending off the other 2. They next sailed for the West Indies, but provisions growing short, proceeded to St. Christopher's, where, being denied provisions by the governor, they fired on the town and burnt 2 ships in the roads. They then repaired to the island of St. Bartholomew, where the governor supplied them with every necessary, and caressed them in the kindest manner. Satiated with indulgence, and having taken in a large stock of everything necessary, they unanimously voted to hasten to the coast of Guinea. In their way they took a Frenchman, and as she was fitter for the private service than their own, they informed the captain that, as a fair exchange was no robbery, they would exchange sloops with him. Accordingly, having shifted their men, they set sail. However, going by mistake out of the track of the trade winds, they were under the necessity of returning to the West Indies. They now directed their course to Surinam, but not having sufficient water for the voyage, they were soon reduced to a mouthful of water in the day. Their numbers daily diminished by thirst and famine, and the few who survived were reduced to the greatest weakness. They at last had not one drop of water or any other liquid, when, to their inexpressible joy, they anchored in 7 fathoms of water. This tended to revive exhausted nature and inspire them with new vigour, though as yet they had received no relief. In the morning they discovered land, but at such a distance that their hopes were greatly dampened. The boat was, however, sent off, and at night returned with plenty of that necessary element. But this remarkable deliverance produced no reformation in the manners of these unfeeling and obdurate men. Steering their course from that place to Barbados, in their way they met with a vessel which supplied them with all necessaries. Not long after, they captured a brigantine, the mate of which joined their association. Having from these two obtained a large supply, they changed their course and watered at Tobago. Informed, however, that there were 2 vessels sent in pursuit of them, they went to return their compliments to the governor of Martinique for this kindness. It was the custom of the Dutch interlopers, when they approached this island to trade with the inhabitants, to hoist their jacks. Roberts knew the signal, and did so likewise. They, supposing that a good market was near, strove who could first reach Roberts. Determined to do them all possible mischief, he destroyed them one by one as they came into his power. He only reserved one ship to send the men on shore, and burnt the remainder, to the number of 20. Roberts and his crew were so fortunate as to capture several vessels, and to render their liquor so plentiful, that it was esteemed a crime against Providence not to be continually drunk. One man, remarkable for his sobriety, along with 2 others, found an opportunity to set off without taking leave of their friends. But a dispatch being sent after them, they were brought back, and in a formal manner tried and sentenced. But one of them was saved by the humorous interference of one of the judges, whose speech was truly worthy of a pirate, while the other 2 suffered the punishment of death. When necessity again compelled them, they renewed their cruising, and, dissatisfied with capturing vessels which only afforded them a temporary supply, directed their course to the Guinea coast to forage for gold. Intoxication rendered them unruly, and the brigantine at last embraced the cover of night to abandon the commodore. Unconcerned at the loss of his companion, Roberts pursued his voyage. He fell in with 2 French ships, the one of 10 guns and 65 men, and the other of 16 guns and 75 men. These dastards no sooner beheld the black flag than they surrendered. With these they went to Sierra Leone, constituting one of them a consort by the name of the Ranger, and the other a storeship. This port being frequented by the greater part of the traders to that quarter, they remained here 6 weeks, enjoying themselves in all the splendour and luxury of a piratical life. After this they renewed their voyage, and having captured a vessel, the greater part of the men united their fortunes with the pirates. On board of one of the ships was a clergyman, whom some of them proposed taking along with them, for no other reason than that they had not a chaplain on board. They endeavoured to gain his consent, and assured him that he should want for nothing, and his only work would be to make punch and say prayers. Depraved, however, as these men were, they did not choose to constrain him to go, but displayed their civility further by permitting him to carry along with him whatever he called his own. After several cruises, they now went into a convenient harbour at Old Calabar, where they cleaned, refitted, divided their booty, and, for a considerable time, caroused, to banish care and sober reflection. According to their usual custom, the time of festivity and mirth was prolonged until the want of means recalled them to reason and exertion. Leaving this port, they cruised from place to place with varied success, but in all their captures either burning, sinking, or devoting their prizes to their own use, according to the whim of the moment. the Swallow, and another man of war being sent out expressly to pursue and take Roberts